Hi, and welcome back to another exciting show of food farms and chefs. And I am super elated to introduce you to Kiki Aranita, who is one of Philadelphia's favorite chefs. Kiki, you have so much history as a chef and as just a contributor in the hospitality industry. I'm honored to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I mean, not to for you know give like a blow up your head or whatever, but I mean, like, you've done so much, like, in our industry. Like, you've built a name for yourself with your former partner, business partner in with Poi Dog. You're a contributor as a writer to a couple of different magazines. You also have a line of sauces, but all of the stuff, like, kind of act like accrued together. Like, I'm blown away by you. But how did you get started in this industry?
Um, so it's not like I had a very clear thought out plan back in 2013. I was in grad school for a really long time for Latin and Greek. So of course, something that qualified me for chefing these days. Um, but was pretty I was very, very into what I was studying and teaching. And I had really incredible fellowships, um, archaeological fellowships, but it got to a certain point where I realized I had done everything that I hoped to in academia. And food trucks were taking off. And I did the extremely not recommended thing of leaving my grad program, working in other restaurants on another food truck, and eventually purchasing my own. So yeah, started with a food truck and then just kind of developed from there. Catering, then a restaurant, and now the sauces.
So, with the sauces, like, I obviously, you have a history. You're both Hawaiian and lived in Hong Kong, or from Hong Kong. What have you done in order to, like, incorporate your ethnicity, your history, your culinary expertise in the sauces?
So I am not ethnically Hawaiian.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, 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 it's okay. It's a distinction that is very important to make, especially in Hawaii, because I'm not indigenous. Much of my family is, but I belong to a branch of the family that is just considered local. In Hawaii, local means the combination of the many ethnic groups that moved to Hawaii to work on sugarcane plantations. And my family's been in Hawaii, at least my ancestors arrived in Hawaii like well over 100 years ago. So there's been a lot of intermarriage. Our family's very, very mixed. So that gave me, and that gives me rather, a very wide palette of flavors to choose from, and to sort of make my own. I'm very, very fortunate to come from two different places that are extremely rich, that have influences from many parts of the world, and have two very, very varied cuisines. So from an early age, I was exposed to a wide range of different foods, different flavors. And of course, when I was younger, I didn't differentiate, like, all right, this is Portuguese, this is Chinese, like everything sort of like blended together. And that blend is something that influences how I have been working for the last 10 years, except that instead of mostly just treating everything as blend, um, like one blended cuisine, I try to pull apart why I cook with specific ingredients, like why I put them together in specific ways. I'm very much interested in food history, um, why we eat the things that we eat.
Yes. And I mean, I know that you also write about some of the recipes, some of the ideas that you come across. You also um create recipes for other industry leaders too. So, your hand inside of the culinary industry is far reaching. So I have to give you accolades for that, but also because when you did enter into Philadelphia by way of Poi Dog with the cart or whatnot, you kind of came out with a bang. Like everybody was like, oh, what is this? This is quite interesting. And blending all of those flavors together and presenting them as part of the menu like was huge for Philadelphia and for the industry, because something that you know when we were kind of like just beginning, not that restaurants haven't been around forever, but like the food industry was kind of getting hot and trending in Philly when you were coming up. So the fact that you were able to offer something that was slightly different than most of the restaurants that were out there at the time, like you know I feel like as a fellow foodie, like I appreciate flavors and I appreciate what you did.
Well, I mean, I was extraordinarily lucky, not just to start at a good time, um, for sort of at the height of the popularity of food trucks. But I didn't know that, and I found out very quickly that I was entering into a food scene that was so supportive. And I haven't seen that anywhere else. I, of course, now exist in multiple cities, or I cook in multiple cities. So I'm always like comparing the experience of making food in these different cities to each other. And Philadelphia is really special. It's extremely collaborative. I didn't expect that when I first started cooking that so many other people would want to cook with me. And I think I was only able to carve out my little niche in the food world because I had so many helpers along the way, and because there was so much interest in individual voices and working together.
Yeah. And I mean, you're saying collaborate, and I want to give a nod to the fact that that you've also done chefs in residency with the Garces group, with Volver. You've done pop-ups with the Philadelphia Museum. You've done pop-ups with Bach Bar. So I want to include that too.
Yeah, and all of these venues have been extremely welcoming and supportive. Like, I once upon a time, 10 years ago, I worked for Jose Garces as a food runner. And it's pretty incredible to be welcomed back after many years away with the same sort of enthusiasm that I experienced 10 years ago. Like I feel like Garces has always had my back through all of the different iterations of Poi Dog. And then we also cooked together in Idaho for a conference last year, not
Oh,
too long
nice.
ago. Yeah, so, and like we were just together in like this cottage, like cooking side by side. And you kind of forget like the stature of Jose Garces at that point, because we're all scrambling around trying to like share the same 2 plastic mixing bowls.
Oh no.
But he brings, yeah, but he like, the way that he works, and the way that he treats other people, like taught me a lot about humility and leading. And I'm very, very proud to have that as part of my culinary lineage.
Yeah. And as you should. And speaking of having your pride in your culinary lineage, you received accolades for unfortunately when your business closed, for an article that you had written. You got nominated for a James Beard Award for that article, and I read it. You're very eloquent in how you describe everything. So I do appreciate and applaud you for that, because as a fellow writer, it's beautiful how you reached out, like touched other bases, and like kind of made people understand like the struggles that you went through. But soon after you had unfortunately closed, you are always busy, you're always kind of looking forward, so you did begin the sauces. So what was that like, starting the sauces? And also I believe you do fabric art.
Fiber art, yes. I mean, everything that I do sort of holds hands with another thing that I do. My life is split up in 2 quadrants. So I spend about 25% of my time hustling the sauce, 25% of my time writing. And I make a very big point in every endeavor to support the smallest of businesses. Um, and sometimes, especially recently, with the dearth of food journalism out there at the moment, I really have to fight for the people that I want to highlight. I really love the retailers that I work with the sauces, and when I get to write about them, that is an extra bonus, sort of like a cherry on top. And the fiber art is woven into all of this as well, because my practice involves collecting scrap yarn, diverting it from the landfill. And we all know that textiles are such a major polluter, and we should all be avoiding fast fashion and the amount of waste that it contributes to our landfills. So like that is sort of a different type of commentary on trash and sustainability. So I'm very much in that world as well. And of course, I still cook. And yeah, so basically, like, even though it seems like my life is compartmentalized, they're split off into ways that support one another. That said, like, I am very proud of that article that I put out. And it captured a moment of collaboration that I'm not sure, like, I feel like that was a really special moment. That was when a bunch of my cooks came together and also launched some of their own initiatives. So like that final week of Poi Dog was like the first time that Jam Brew Ferments sold its kombucha in like single serve containers. And Jamar has gone on to become the director of fermentation at Honeysuckle Projects. And Chance, who is there like selling many pounds of lechon, is now being celebrated all over the city by like basically everybody who passes through his doors with tabachoy. And he's like seeing what he's done, and also seeing him hire several of our former Poi Dog employees. Not a lot of people know that, but his staff is a very similar to the Poi Dog staff, because they're literally the same people. And to see Alejandro, also, he is known on Instagram as Senor Slices. He's serving tamales as a regular pop-up, primarily at Herman's Coffee. Like it felt like these things are still like carrying on the legacy of Poi Dog. So I'm very happy with how things turned out.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm glad to hear that, you know, it was kind of like a launch pad for other individuals, because I feel like everything is intermixed. And, you know, when you're learning and coming up in the hospitality business, like one thing leads to another thing, like even in the aspect of like, as a writer, a fellow writer, like, you know, one thing leads to another. Like you never know where the next step is, what next door is going to open up for, you know, whatever article. Like you were nominated for a James Beard Award. I'm sure you're going to get one at some point in time, if you haven't already. And but let's circle back to the sauces, because I do want to highlight the fact that you are distributing, you know, your sauces that were based in Poi Dog. So it's kind of like another homage to what you were doing before. I know that you just started selling industry sized version of your I apologize, but hui sauce.
Huli, yep.
Okay. And so, you know, that's your latest one. I also know that you're phasing out the lavender one, which I was like, oh no, because I really want to try that before it goes. But what are some of the other sauces, and you know, how do you incorporate them into the recipes and into different, you know, various aspects of the things that you touch on, like through recipe creations and articles, or you know, or your blogging?
So I actually don't blog. which
Oh,
is funny.
I
No, it's
assume
okay.
it's a block because it's like,
Yeah. No, it's funny because like I think a lot of people assume I'm a blogger, but I've never had a blog. I do write a lot, but
yes.
yeah, and I would really I would like to be like I think I would. It's something that I'd like to do. I just haven't gotten around to yet. There's a bunch
Yes.
of things I'd like to do that I haven't gotten around to yet, but I'd like to put out more recipe content around my sauces. I haven't had the time. And honestly, like the greatest pleasure that I get from the sauces is seeing how other people use them. So
Hmm.
as you mentioned, we have industry size sauces. Well, they're food service size, 64-ounce. Jugs of sauce that you can get from our redistributor, CW Danette. They are based in South Philly, right next to Samuel's Seafood. And they can make sure that if you're a restaurant, you can get as much sauce as you possibly want. And I have been seeing my industry friends use the Huli Huli sauce in multiple applications, some of which you'll see on menus very, very soon. For example, there is a Huli Huli chicken cheesesteak in the works. And what else is there? I believe there's going to be a Huli Huli chicken mac and cheese. But seeing like other chefs and other non-chefs like play with my sauce is far more gratifying than I can possibly describe.
I know Gene used to teach at a school, and so one of the things that he had taught is how to incorporate sauces or whatnot. So but I don't know if Gene wants to pop in and say anything about sauces and the using them as like an introvert a universal, that's the word, a universal like thing to add to different proteins and on top of vegetables and stuff. But
I think that one of the things from the conversation that I'm really loving and enjoying is when you talked about your heritage and you described yourself as a local, which is a Hawaiian of very mixed cultures that all came to Hawaii, although your family roots go back 100 years, and I found that so significant in that blended culture. And then when you go on to talk about, all the different cities you're working in now, I see this great future if I look into a crystal ball and saying she's going to take that same approach from all these cities that she's going to and taking little bits and pieces of it and make something really amazing and maybe and just maybe in my opinion, kind of revolutionize, the food world a little bit to realize that, we're all one local in that we're American with all these great different little things that can bring in. And, you know, I, I, I love this because you kind of described America as you talked about your culture being a local. And today everybody identifies as I'm this and I'm that and I'm this and I'm that. And you're a local, but you bring in all these little different things. And I see this great future ahead where you take the little things that you learn in different parts of the country and incorporate it into what you already have.
Yeah, well, we have a very diverse country, so I'm very, and I have cooked in various pockets of it. So, yeah, thank you for that observation.
I
um
believe, yep, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and I apologize, but we were having a lot of fun. I was gonna have Gene round you up, but let our listeners know where to find you, where to find more about you, and where to find your sauces.
So first of all, shop small. I can't say this often enough. I most of the sauces that you find in your chain grocery store are going to be only lining the pockets of large corporations. So go to places that are special, like Riverwards Produce, Row House Grocery, Herman's Coffee, and pick up some tamales if Alejandro is there. Go to DeBruno's, like go to the places that make our city special and unique, and that actually pay their producers well. In the meantime, you can follow me on Instagram. It's Kiki Aranita, KikiAranita, for my writing, fiber art, and cooking content. And for more cooking and sauce content, go over to Poi Dog Philly. That's POIDOG Philly.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Kiki. And I look forward to running into you again.
All right, next time I'll bring you sauce.
All right.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. And we will be right back after this short break. Hi, and welcome back to Food Farms and Chefs. I am very excited to have Farmer Lee Jones join us on Food Farms and Chefs. I don't know if I should introduce you as Lee Jones or Farmer Lee.
You can call me anything but late for dinner.
Yeah. You better not have late dinner because you work and live on the farm.
We eat late dinner every single day, it seems.
So you've been in this industry for over 35 years, I think, but what was it like growing up as, because I think you grew up under your father's tutelage
Right.
as a farmer. So what was it like growing up on the farm and, kind of just learning and acclimating to this, to being a farmer?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, first of all, I got the privilege of working with my father every single day for 40 years, and getting to work with my dad meant everything. So, but he was in the wholesale business. He took over an operation that he had started to work for at 14 years old, and they were supplying places like Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, A&P, Big Bear, Pick and Pay, Kroger, Fisher Fazio, selling by the truckloads of fresh market vegetable, and then they were also working cooperatively with about 60 other growers from this area. It's an amazing microclimate right along Lake Erie. We're 2.9 miles inland from Lake Erie, and it's some of the richest sandy loam in the world. In fact, the farm that we're on is all old lake bottom about 11,000 years ago. And of course, Lake Erie is the shallowest of all the Great Lakes. Consequently, it's the warmest. And so it creates an amazing microclimate here along the lake.
It's also becoming a very unique region for Pennsylvania wines as well, like the Pesky Island and some of the other, wineries that are out there producing some and I'm going to use this caveat, for Pennsylvania, some very good quality wines are coming out of there in the area because of that great sandy, loamy soil that's out there. And, it's really become this microcosm of agricultural diversity and unique products that are coming out of that area. It's just so wonderful to see.
Absolutely. In fact, this area was huge in wine grapes even before Napa Valley. And the French will never admit this, but there was a huge blight 150 years ago, and our county shared wine or grape stock with them to get started back over. Now, like I say, you heard it here first. You will never hear the French tell you that, but some of the stock from this county actually went over to help them when they had a disease and a blight over there and lost a lot of stock. So.
It's very unique that not many people know that, and a lot of Napa Valley exists because of that blight, because as people saw what was happening and were concerned about being totally eliminated over there, a lot of healthy stock, or what they thought was healthy, was brought over here too and grafted in, and was the foundation for a lot of vineyards in the West Coast as well. But a great little thing. When you talk about, and you certainly aged me, but I knew it. A&P and some of those big brand names, and what produce used to be to what it is now, the changes that you have saw through the years of going to where, there was one variety of tomato and it was a 3-pack that was plastic wrapped, in a supermarket, to so many different varieties and all. Tell us a little bit about what you think are the most significant changes for farming that you've saw through your career.
Well, we kind of lost touch with the whole wholesale world. It seems as though the big got bigger and the small got out. Of course, Earl Butz, Secretary of Agriculture in the 70s, that was his exact message to farmers, was to get bigger, get out. And we lost the family farm in '83. Interest rates hit 22%. Um, and we had a hailstorm and it wiped out all the crops. And of course, the banks foreclosed. And I stood at 19 years old with my mother and father and brother and sister and all of our neighbors and all of our competitors and everybody that was there to celebrate our failure. And they auctioned every single thing that we owned off, right down to my mother's car and our home and every piece of equipment. But, it's changed a lot in that it's big business. It's really big business. I can't talk as an expert in what's going on in that wholesale world. Labor has certainly become a factor. A lot of crops, it's very difficult to grow here because labor coming out of or crops being grown in Mexico. A lot of farms in the US are farming over there where the labor is so much cheaper. It's really difficult to compete here. But it's beyond my ability to comprehend what's going on, and I'm not an expert in it. We left that world, and I'm glad that door closed and another one opened.
Well, but there are a couple things you are an expert in, and to be honest, you you took the hard route. You got into regenerative farming. You got into putting back into the soil and doing things a different way. You got away, away from big corporate farming and producing crops in a smaller fashion and being what's sound agriculture, not commercial agriculture. And then you got into something that one of my favorite chefs in the country, God bless his soul, passed away, but Charlie Trotter, who was launching such a great initiative in chefs being out on the farm and learning what produce is at its finest. And you've worked in that also, doing a lot of the same things. So tell us a little bit about your insights into cooking with farm fresh and what those differences are.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would be certainly really out of line if I didn't say that Charlie Trotter did more for our family than we could ever repay. And there isn't a day goes by that his influence doesn't affect what we do here on the farm. He was, of course, the first American chef to have a vegetable prefix menu, which was way ahead of its time. And of course, it's really gained in popularity. Dylan, his son, is actually going to be here, I believe, later this week, and is going to be spending a week with us here on the farm to learn and to absorb everything he can. And so we're really excited to have Dylan here on the farm. I just was with Dylan about 10 days ago in Chicago. But, we were desperate. And I wouldn't say that we were genius to have started into this. We were desperate. There was not a bank that would loan us a dime. And we started back at farmers markets. We begged a neighbor to rent us 50 acres and told him we didn't think, there was a possibility we might not make it through the first year. But if we made it through the first year, we'd pay them double the rent. And they rolled the dice with us and rented us 50 acres. And we started back at farmers markets. And there we met a chef. And she knew a heck of a lot more about the culinary world than we did. And that was in the mid 80s. And she said, I think that if you'll grow for the flavor, go for the integrity of the product rather than the tons per acre, I believe there would be enough chefs to support you. And we were so desperate for a way to survive. We grabbed around both of her ankles and we said, okay, teach us. But, the thing that resonated with us most was growing for flavor. My dad was at Ohio State. I went to Ohio State. My brother is a graduate from Ohio State. And if you follow the money, the universities are always crying about being financially strapped. Who's making the money? The chemical companies and the pharmaceutical companies. So they say, well, hey, we'd like to give you a grant to do research, to be able to help the farmers. And by the way, that research needs to include our chemicals. And so they did research and included the chemicals, and this was the way that we farmed. And it was about creating more efficiency. We didn't have to mechanically cultivate. We could cultivate, we could manage the weeds through chemical. So when you plant, you spray, and it kills everything other than the genetically modified plant. And it also kills the biology. So, and I don't fault the farmers. We are the most efficient system in the world as it relates to our income in the United States. We produce food cheaper than any other country in the world, yet we have the highest health care in the world. So there's a real conundrum there. So when we lost the farm and looking at losing flavor and nutritional levels tanking, in the last 100 years, the nutritional level in vegetables has gone down 50 to 80% and continues to go down. So if you can imagine that graph from 1920 to 2020, a 50 to 80% decline in nutritional levels. And it's not my opinion, it's fact. You can Google it, you can read it. There's lots of writings about it. But during that same period, a 3,000% increase in kidney, liver, heart, cancer disease, attention deficit disorder, autism, childhood obesity, allergies, diabetes. We believe that's not a coincidence. But what Iris Balin, Chef Iris Balin was promoting to us was to grow for flavor. And so for 40 years, that has been our sole focus, is trying to build flavor naturally, because chefs told us the three most important things were flavor was first, flavor was second, flavor was third. But do it naturally, do it without chemical. We started looking at agricultural books that are 100, 150, 200 years old. Why is it that agriculture 100 years ago was producing a more nutritious, more flavorful vegetable than we can today? With all the know-how, with all the brilliant people, with all the technology that we have in this world, and the nutritional levels tanking. So my dad was really the impetus behind putting a lab in. We put a lab in to be able to measure nutrient density, nitrate oxides, trying to test looking at the biology, counting actually the amount of biology, live living biology, and the species of biology in the soil, and what was the cause and effect. And it's been really exciting to be able to see through regenerative agriculture just unbelievable results. In some cases, we're seeing nutritional levels as high as 150 to 300 times higher than the USDA average. Now, the USDA average is too low, but we're moving things in the right direction. It's really exciting.
Yes, we are. You touched on so much that we could talk for hours and hours about.
Right.
The topics you just talked about that people are unaware of, the nutritional value that's increasing in vegetables, and the government standards and what large farming has done. Just really so many amazing topics there. And when it warmed my heart hearing that Dylan was coming out, and I'm a huge Charlie Trotter fan, and I had an opportunity to sit through an excellence experience and hear him speak many times, and an opportunity to meet him at the Art Institute of Chicago a couple times when I was there for seminars, and just one of the amazing human being, and to hear you say would warm my heart, because really he was the person who pushed so many chefs into get out, get your hands dirty, and do that. And a long time ago, when I was teaching in a high school level, I was doing the same thing, trying to get young students out to the farms to get their hands dirty and learn where things come from, and not the big commercial farms, but small farms and small growers, and learn about that difference. And it is so vital that we do that, and that we continue to push for that, and try to reverse the trend of where we're going right now. In that aspect. And
we could make a whole show just about talking about Charlie Trotter's stories. I mean, on three different occasions, he invited us to bring 30 people from the farm to come and experience Charlie Trotter. And I'm talking about folks that would never have had a chance to come before. We took one young man, Jose, over to J.C. Penney's and bought his very first suit of his life. And he said, be there exactly at 11 a.m. We left the farm at 5 a.m. We got there a little early, but we didn't get to the restaurant early. We went down the road and killed time because we wanted to show up exactly when he told us to. And he even told us how to pull in front of the restaurant. When we arrived there were 20 people in chef's whites, arm's length apart, 20 people in black suits and ties, arm's length apart, on 816 West Armitage, applauding as the bus pulled up. And I got off of the bus with tears coming down my face. And, and 3 different times we did this. And even right up before he closed, he said, can we do it one more time? And there was going to be no value to him at that point, but he recognized the farm as an extension of the kitchen. And that was the beauty of it, because now we saw how that squash blossom or how that cucumber bloom or how that microgreen was being placed on that plate, and with the precision and the accuracy and why the flavors counted and how they needed to complement the dish and pair with the wine. And so he recognized us as an extension of that kitchen. It was genius. And it just empowered our team to be able to even do a better job for him and other chefs throughout the country. Really, really exciting stuff.
I love your enthusiasm and excitement when you talk about that. And that's exactly what the excellence experience was and what Charlie Trotter stood for. And, I often talk in Amherst Laughs all the time, and I'm a big fan of saying, we need to thank our farmers, for without them, we would be hungry, naked, and sober. But there's no more reality than that. People don't realize that every American needs to get out and do a little research and learn about the things that you're talking about, and start saying, well, hold on. I bought a tomato at, Whole Foods, or I bought a tomato here, but it's not as healthy as, this one over here that I can get at this market, or I can, and really start pushing back the farmers markets and the small growers and people who are doing things correctly, and, organic growers and things like that. I wish I knew the answer, because it's a dire need. You hit it on the head. We're the best farmers in the world. We produce the most food of the lowest nutritional value, and we prepare it all wrong.
And it's not that the farmers are bad people. They're following a model that exists, and that says keep your costs as low as possible, produce as many tons per acre as you can, and you might stay in business. It's all about efficiency. If we were measuring for flavor per mouthful, or the nutrient density, or the nutritional levels of the vegetables, I think it would change the model a little bit. It's coming. Look, this isn't all doom and gloom. The Kiss the Ground, I'm sure you've watched that, the documentary, and now it just released Common Ground.
Yes.
It's really talking about the relevancy. We were part of a documentary that's just airing, Food and Country, and that was with Ruth Reichel and Alice Waters and several other folks. And I think it's awareness, and it's coming. There's hope, but in Kiss the Ground, they talk about, if we don't get this right and start and change it, we've got 60 harvests left. And this documentary was done 3 years ago. So it's time to pay attention, sit up and pay attention.
I so agree. And without that, and I talk to people all the time about, everything from beekeeping and, rooftop, hives and doing things like that in our city, and, the benefits of that. I was just at a college where I was working with them to try to get, some hives put on there because they were next to a big arboretum. And, there was concern about that. And I was like, how great it is. One, it's, sound agriculture to have those hives, in the area. We need it. We're next to an arboretum, this and this and this. And what a great thing is to be able to share that honey with the beekeeper and produce honey for the small college that, could be given as gifts or used in the dining hall. And, what a wonderful thing that is. And, people need to start looking at that one little thing that they can do, agriculturally sound agriculture, farmers markets and all that. I think
Absolutely.
Amber wants to chime in.
Yeah, speaking of all of that, we have some extra time today. So I wanted to also touch base on the fact that you literally, like, to take it to a less serious note, you've literally wrote the book on farming, and included like recipes in addition to that. But you also have like through your website, I mean, you're talking about obviously regenerative farming, which is key. And I don't know enough about it, but I know that Jean would know more. But off of the pandemic and whatnot, you had to rethink everything as well and create an industry to ship out boxes that are full of all of this nutrient rich all these nutrient rich ingredients and vegetables that you've grown to individuals who can, and chefs who can purchase it through your website. And I know that your primary concern is obviously like, let's make sure that we support local. So I've seen some of your interviews where you're like, definitely go local first, local farmers. But when we are in like either a food drought area or whatnot, you have that ability to grow these ingredients and ship them out to individuals who, might want something extra to help out their own, garden, like just alleviate some of that. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about some of the different things that you provide that we can purchase?
Yeah, well, I mean, for 40 years, we were working directly with chefs, and we were busy enough that we had talked about and knew that we wanted to do a direct to consumer market, but we just really seemed to never be able to get time to be able to make that happen. And lo and behold, we lost 80% of our business literally in 2 weeks' time. The restaurant just shut down, and they were in trouble, and we were in trouble, and our team was in trouble.
Yeah.
I do nothing individually. My brother and I are business partners, but there's an extended family here, and we made the decision that we were going to keep our team employed. There were some people that felt that it was better to furlough because it was a better decision for their family. But we really fought hard to keep that team going. We did farm to family that the government offered, and that worked well for a while to at least keep us busy. But then that deal changed. We did anything we could to get a base hit, but we recognized very early on that people really needed a safe place to be able to get good, healthy food, that they knew that there was somebody conscientious on the farm end growing this stuff. And so, the shortest distance between two places is direct.
Yeah.
And so we very quickly, I mean, our website was really more of an informational website for our chefs to go on and look at what things we had to offer. And our marketing team, they worked literally round the clock for like 72 hours to be able to make an online ordering system. And that's not really their expertise. And we had some folks from the outside working on this so that people could be able to go online. We were afraid to go to a grocery store. And so they could go online and order. Rachel Ray was going on and ordering 100 boxes at a time and sending them to friends.
Oh, wow.
People were sent, it was funny. I mean, COVID, nothing about COVID was funny. I should say that differently. But some people seem to be okay in it, and their businesses did well based on it. And a lot of others of us struggled. And so when somebody did feel like they were doing okay, they were very, very quick to get on and buy boxes to send to somebody that they knew were in need. It's now really become something of folks that want to stay well or get well are using the product.
Yeah.
It's being used for gifting. We love our walk through the garden box where it's what looks great in any given day on the farm. We brought in a doctor. We hired Dr. Amy Sapola. She was at the Mayo Clinic. We hired her full time and moved her and her family here to the farm, and she curates boxes. She does a podcast based on particular things. If you're trying to work on certain parts, or if you have certain ailments, then there are vegetables, there are herbs, there are things that can help towards fighting those issues.
Yeah.
So we curate all kinds of boxes. You can go to farmerjonesfarm.com and order a box right now. If you've got an Aunt Matilda in Tampa and she has 3 of everything, but you know you need to get her a gift, what the hell do you get her? You get her a subscription to a box of vegetables that can come once a month or once a week, whatever you want. Or if you're a snowbird and you go down to Naples in the winter, we can change the address and ship it to you down there. So it's excuse me, it's really been fun to be able to offer that up. And then we opened a farm market. We hadn't done farm market for 40 years. So now the home delivery's busy. The restaurants have come back, thank God. And we're at the farmers market. So
all around it's been picking up, which is a good thing, a very
Yeah.
good thing.
Right.
Now speaking of nutrient rich foods and restaurants opening up, I know that you had done a collaboration with a chef. I forget what his name was, but you did like vegetable slice sandwich or something to that regard.
Well, we've actually all during COVID. I mean, and again, Thomas Keller and Danielle Ballou were huge. I mean, Thomas was like calling me once a week. Farmer, you okay? We're gonna get through this. We just stick together.
Yeah.
And they collaborated with boxes. Thomas has like 1 million followers, and Danielle like 1 million followers, and they collaborated, and we collaborated with a lamb farmer, Keith Martin, and he was in Pennsylvania. He is in Pennsylvania, and he would bring his lamb up, and we would ship the lamb and the vegetables. But we've done numerous collaborations. I think that maybe what you're referring to, one of the other projects we worked on, plant-based is a movement that is not a fad. It is a trend. We need it for our health. We need it for our environment. It's really critical. But I'm going to tell you, go ahead.
I was going to say, I have to unfortunately wrap you up because I didn't realize how much time we had gone over. But I'm getting a cue that I need to wrap up. So let our listeners know where to find you and where to find more information, because I'm sure that they can find what you're about to say.
Yeah. farmerjonesfarm.com. And you can order the boxes online. And Instagram, Farmer Lee Jones. Please follow us and share with us what you're doing, and get out to that farmer's market, your local farmer's market, and eat your vegetables. Eat the rainbow and eat your veggies.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will look for your vegetables and your recipes in a store, or actually the book in a store and online. We'll look for your recipes. All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. All right. You folks have a great day.
You too. And we will be back next week with a brand new episode.